Hello and welcome to this Newysports presentation. This camera is a little bit wonky at the moment. This is semi-final week 1 of the New FM First Division for 2016, kicking off tomorrow at Kahibah Oval and then of course Sunday at the Gardens. What this is, this video in particular, this is just sort of a hand-in-hand complement video to the previews that were put up yesterday for those games. And the previews this week, each preview is 500 words. All the previews will be going into the match day programs at Kahibah and Wallsend. I myself have had a very big part in preparing the program for Kahibah this weekend. And of course, Danny out at Wallsend will be doing their one and adding all the previews. So you will notice the previews this week don't really, there's a separate prediction part. I kept it a bit neutral. You know, I think that could be a way forward for next season, is so then clubs don't have to edit them or anything like that. If they want to use them, they can, you know, make the prediction or the tip or whatever at the bottom just separately to the actual preview itself. So the first game we're going to go through, and this is trial and error. I don't really know how this is going to go because I've never done one of these. This is Wallsend and West Wallsend playing each other in the under-17s fixture. I do have the Schalke shirt on at the moment. I don't have a West Wallsend shirt on. That's not what this is. Alright, so we're going to talk about the under-17s fixture tomorrow at Kahibah Oval, 9:15 AM. Wallsend third versus West Wallsend second. Now this game, I've been looking forward to this for weeks. I've been hoping for this. You know, obviously, I wasn't going to say I hope Lakes win the premiership so then Wallsend play Westy, you know, but that's sort of what I was going for, and I think a few people were that just want to see really good games and whatnot. And look, this is just brilliant. The Wallsend derby in the under-17s. I don't really remember how it went out there at Westy all the way back in, I've got the poster here. It was all the way back in round 4 at the end of March, so that was a long time ago. But one game that I do remember, and it's probably, I reckon, the best game this season for dramatic value, was Westy and Wallsend at the Gardens in the under-17s. West Wallsend 5-3, the winners, and that was a huge result. That was finals-like game, finals-like atmosphere, and it resumes. And the only thing that probably could make this better is if it was at the Gardens. Obviously, Wallsend would have much preferred that. So I don't think the atmosphere at Kahibah will be as good, but I say that, but then again, I think a lot of supporters for both clubs and parents and families and that will be there, so we'll see how it goes at Kahibah. Mark my words, this is probably, in my mind, the match of the day tomorrow. It's got the potential to do that. Kahibah and Belswans in first grade, though, will probably steal the show, but this could very well do that. It's going to set the bar very high for those 19s and 23s games. This is going to be a hell of a semi-final tie, and as I said, I've been looking forward to this, the potential of this, for a long time. So Wallsend, we'll talk about them first. It was a side that just looked absolutely awful at the start of pre-season, I'm not going to lie, and that was because they'd just come together, and I believe, I watched them at Maitland. I think that was their first game, so that day was pretty ugly at times, but I tell you what, there's nothing, it was like a different team I watched. I don't know, it was like a different club, just nowhere near that level anymore, and one of the best teams to watch in the comp, if not the best, football wise. Craig Salembus has got them playing some excellent style. The road to the finals definitely hasn't been easy. There's been mental toughness required, and we're going to be talking about mental toughness a lot during this. I hope this is not going to be a long video, so we're going to get a bit of a move on. Their captain, Darcy Hall, is led led by example, but it's defensive partner Jackson Manning, who has been just a rock at the back, and he is over in Beijing at the moment planning a tournament, so he will be missed for the semi-finals. He will make it back for the grand final if they make it, so without Jackson Manning, that's a huge out, I'm not going to lie. And they played, that fan's a bit loud, I'm going to leave that off. They played Kahibah 2 weeks ago without Angelos Carvelis, and that day, you know, there's a couple key players there, Carvelis, Manning, so Jacob Ray, another one who will be in. It's a test, it's a real test, and I think without a doubt West Wallsend come into this as favourites. Let's get a move on, I don't want this to go all day. Josh Knight, you know, classy year for Knight. Improved behaviour on the field, less cards, no send-offs that I can think of. So he's done a very good job this year, and he's got a lot of goals. Jared Hayter, another one who's done really well. I'm not sure if he's still injured or not going into the finals. He might be out. But again, this team, from the back with Josh Sneddon in goals, has done a hell of a lot of work. But this team is, across the park, is solid. So what we're going to go through here is keys to victory. Westy have won the 2 meetings this year, 2-0 in round 4 and 5-3 in round, whatever round that was out at the Gardens, I'm not sure. And Wallsend, I think importantly, you have to point out they've only won 1 from 8 games against top 4 opposition. And when you chuck top 5, Cooksill, you know, which Cooksill's sort of, they didn't make it, but they're a quality outfit as well. Wallsend have won 2 from 10. So their record against top sides is not good, and that's why I think they're going to go down, to be honest. I've tipped West Wallsend 3-1 on the weekend. That's away goals as well, which will that's a huge advantage to get from the first leg. I think a lot of damage can be done here in the first leg with your away goals. The keys to victory for Wallsend, it's defence, I think. And I'm going to say this for most of the home teams this weekend. They can't afford to give away goals. They've got to be mindful at the back. Jackson Manning's he's a big out. I'm not sure who will slot in there at centre back. It's a tough question. They've got loads of fullbacks. I'd probably put Gabriel Barron-Smith there at centre back. I don't think you could drop a midfielder back that I can think of. It's a very hard position to fill, centre back, and a very hard spot to fill for Manning being out. Goalkeeper Cameron Jefferson-Bilb's going to need to be on his game. And again, their key to victory up front is Jacob Ray. If he can fire some goals in, then they're definitely a chance. But he needs to be in form as well. Angelos Carvelis in midfield. I think they're going to know their strengths. I think they do know their strengths. Craig Salembus knows their strengths and their weaknesses, and I think they're going to try and work to that. For West Wallsend, I think the wide flanks and really test the fullbacks. You know, the likes of Kai Drayton out wide. I can't think of who. Or Jared Hayter sometimes is that wide man on the left. But he might not be playing. I don't know if he's still injured. There's definitely a left winger in that team. I just can't put a name to that person at this moment. And yeah, again with Wallsend having a centre back filling the spot there, I think the sort of midfielders, Mitch Kramer and whatnot, will look to get some balls in behind tonight, and you know those second phase balls will be very important tomorrow. When I did, you know, and I don't want to put too much on Jackson Manning being out, but when I watched Westy play out at the Gardens, he was the one that was so often stopping Josh Knight. So Darcy Hall's going to have to work very hard on stopping him. But Westy, if you focus on stopping Josh Knight, they'll just get you from anywhere else on the field. They're that sort of team. So I think Wallsend definitely have to sort of look at avoiding away goals. That's the key to victory. It's a 2-leg semi-final, and I think a lot of teams, they can't afford to just go too hard in the first leg and potentially leak anything at the back. We'll move on now to Kahibah and Belswans. That just took 10 minutes, so we're going to move on. These ones they're not going to be as long because I'm not going to sit here for the next 80 minutes. Kahibah and Belswans in the 19s, and I'm not even going to do the preview thing. I'm just going to go straight to keys to victory. You can read the previews, they're up on Newysports as we speak. Now this is interesting, I will mention this. Both games were played at Blacksmiths. Obviously the first round game was played away from Kahibah Oval due to the field getting some work done on it. So this is the first time Belswans have come to Kahibah. But that home game for Kahibah back in round 5 or whatever it was, that finished 3-2 to Belswans, and then Kahibah won 3-2 in... Actually, it was the other way around. Kahibah won 3-2 in the first... I don't know. I have absolutely no idea. Yes, I do. Kahibah won. They were the away team in the first game. No, they weren't. Not good. Kahibah won 3-2 in the first game. Belswans won 3-2 in the next game. That's it. That's a point right there. So it's very, very, very well even. And Kahibah, I think they're a good chance, but I think Belswans just possess that little more in attack. Kahibah, of course, lost Matty Hughes, lost Bailey Cooper. I mean, they got a goal last week through Brock Turner, which he's probably not going to be striker this week. I don't know who's going to be the striker. They seem to be finding goals, but they don't exactly possess someone like Joel Nicholson or Will Dundas like Belswans do. So the key for victory for Kahibah, again, this is defence. This the defenders and the goalkeeper, they're going to have to be very strong, because, and this is more so than more so than the 17s and definitely the 23s. First grade maybe not, but away goals are going to be vital in the 19s. This Belswans team can put goals in, and Kahibah, if they fall behind, something like a 3-1 will be very, very difficult to come back from, especially going to Belswans next week. They've got the experience though, Kahibah, and they've got plenty of players who know all about the away goals after what happened last season in the 17s. So yes, Kahibah, it's defence that wins them the game tomorrow. A 0-0 draw is a win for them tomorrow. Don't get me wrong. Free kicks as well. They've got Harry Wills, who scored an absolute cracker out there at Belswans. So, they'll probably look at set plays, especially the corner. They like those corners. They've got a little corner move. Belswans probably fully aware of it. They like to stack the goal line on the corners. That's, set plays can be crucial. But yeah, defensive work is going to be required. For Belswans, it's the opposite. I think that they've just got to go for it tomorrow. A 2-2 draw or something like that would not faze them one bit with the away goal rule. A lot of their defensive work's gone under the radar this year with, obviously what's been going on up front. But, Connor Bryson's a solid goalkeeper, and that back line, Sam Glover especially, just really, really good. Ned Gain, there's others, Josh Anstess, it's there that they've won. They've hardly conceded any goals compared to some of the teams in this competition. So they definitely do have defensive skill, but their key to victory tomorrow is quite simply up front, Dundas, Nicholson. That's really all they need. Of course, there's support to that, but if Joel Nicholson can fire in 2 or 3 goals like he normally does, you know, he is the best striker in the competition, apart from maybe Sam Walker. He's got more goals than Sam Walker, but obviously Walker's got that class. But Joel Nicholson, for his age, the potential he has is quite something. And yeah, Belswans, just plenty of talent in this squad. I'm quite looking forward to this game, and I think Belswans are going to get the win 2-1. I've gone. If it's anything, if it's a 3-1, or you know, if it's there's a big difference between 2-1 and 3-1 when away goals are counted. We'll move on to the 23s at Kahibah tomorrow, where South Cardiff play Cooks Hill United. This is going to be good. These two teams, there's general, not really, I'm not going to say there's general dislike, but there's some old Cooks Hill players at South Cardiff, and so both clubs are sort of looking at getting one up over the other. Cooks Hill pretty much embarrassed South Cardiff in the first game, 4-0. Second game it was 2-1. A lot closer, but Southie frustrated. So they'll be without Ben McCabe, who I think is a big out, but Trent Lambourne fired a hat-trick last week. They won a huge game at Lakes, 4-3 last weekend, and they come into this with confidence, and it's their key to victory, as the home side, of course, avoid those away goals, but I think that they've just got to get into a grind. I can't see this being any more than probably 3 goals in this one. I can't see it being some 4-3 or 3-2 or anything like that. I think this is going to be a real hard sort of grind out style of game. Southie, I couldn't really put a finger on their key to victory. They've just got to step up where it's required. Trent Lambourne obviously will be looking to continue some of that form from last week. And Dominic Fox in goals will be sort of hoping to keep out any away goals. That's really what it's all about. For Cooks Hill, it is the away leg. They just need some confidence. I think they've got it. It was a good effort last week. A great goal from Ben Fraulich. But again, the strikers, the guys who are meant to be scoring goals in that Cooks Hill 23s team have not been scoring too many goals. It's the likes of James Roman, Sam Pateman, all these guys sort of further up the pitch. They need to be on point tomorrow. Giles Boyd will probably be putting a massive effort against the likes of Sheldon Candy and Nick Tantos. They know each other very well, these sides. And that was a decent game they produced out there at Yalinga not that long ago. So there's probably more potential in this one to be a draw than anything, but I've tipped Cooks Hill 2-1 to really set up an interesting second leg next week out at Blacksmiths. But again, it's not like Kahibah versus Belswans in the 19s. There's no away, you know. These teams are both they're playing in a neutral ground, and then they're playing in a neutral ground again next week. I think it makes it very interesting, just like the 17s. And Cooks Hill and Southie in the 23s, it is those two clubs. It's their only chance of winning any silverware this season, so big games for both of them. Kahibah and Belswans in first grade, this is just going to be brilliant, this match. One of the best games I've seen all year in this competition, back in round 4, round 5, whenever it was. But the second game I thought wasn't as good. It was a defensive effort from Kahibah. They won 1-0. In 4 meetings in UFM First Division over the last 2 seasons, Kahibah have never lost to Belmont Swansea. So they've got that, but this is different. This is finals. This is a Belswans side that is like no other going forward. And also, you know, their defence is pretty damn solid as well. A very good goalkeeper in Nick Popel too. But for Belswans, you know, they've got everyone on deck this week. Joel Shearer's back in. He's probably back to full fitness now after easing into the squad over the last few weeks. Fletcher Price included. And because I did the Kahibah program, I do have their team list, and there is a name there that might come as a bit of a surprise to some, probably not as a surprise to most. But I'm not going to name him now because, you know, they're going into the finals. They probably don't want their squad revealed before tomorrow. But they've really got attacking potential, even without said player on the bench. They've got, you know, Jamie Hadlow, Josh Hall, Josh Sutton. We'll talk about keys to victory, Kahibah. Really, I think, you know, I was at Kahibah training the other night, watching them. It was first grade versus 19s. Andre Gumprech didn't play, he just coached, and it was a real lesson just to be that close to Andre Gumprech as he's running a training session. You know, I didn't really want to talk to him too much. He was just in the mindset, in the zone, and it was only because there was lightning and pouring rain that they had to cancel the rest of that training game. But it wasn't like any other training game I've seen. It was full on. It was, you know, I think it was 4-0 to first grade when they called it off. Sean Clerk scored a bomb goal, so their keys to victory, those guys are coming back in. Clerk, Gumprech, and one especially I think is going to be crucial for them is Ash Ilfield. You know, say what about Gumprech. I think having Ash Ilfield in the squad is on the same level as Gumprech being in the squad, just for the sake of the way they want to play and what he adds to that engine room, where it's so, you know, it's credit to the younger guys who came into the squad, but there's no comparison to having experience like Gumprech in there and quality like Ash Ilfield. It'd be interesting to see if they go with Nathan McCarter at centre back. You know, young but quality, but still young, and you know, Gumprech might prefer to have someone more experienced alongside him. I definitely wouldn't be surprised to see that tomorrow. Coxie in goals just been very underrated this season. He's pretty good. So he'll also, both really good goalkeepers tomorrow. You'll probably see more saves than you will goals. But I think Kahibah, they know what they need to do. They've really taken the foot off the pedal the last couple of weeks, especially that Wallsend game. That was ugly. Gumprech especially that day did not have his best game and seemed to be a little bit slow coming out, trying to play out from the back slowly. Andre, he likes to do that. He likes to just try and run it out. It works against some teams who don't really have pace up front, but that day Teague Marcus got him a couple times, and you know, when you got Sutton and Hall maybe not the fastest, but Josh Sutton is definitely, you know, Gumprech, they can't afford to be casual at the back like they were at Wallsend, and look, I don't think they will. Kahibah know that this is finals football. It's probably the biggest game in that club's history, hosting semi-finals there. They did last year, of course, against Valentine, let's not forget that, but they probably really see this, you know, as the next step is to just get into that grand final. And I think that's the goal for Kahibah. For Belswans, their key to victory is just like the key to victory for Kahibah. It's getting goals, and it's Sutton, it's Hall, it's Shearer going forward, it's Hadlow going forward. I think they're the best attacking side in the competition. Lake Macquarie City obviously do have some real potential threats and whatnot going forward, but Belswans, they like the counter-attack. They really seem like a counter-attacking sort of team, and it's not so much a key to victory, but I think for Kahibah, if it's 0-0 at half-time, their chances rise, because Belswans, I think if they're not on the front foot, if they're not leading, and I say this, this is what I've seen, but last weekend they did the exact opposite. Last weekend they were down 1-0 at half-time and come back to win, but in some of the games I've watched, they seem to just drop off a little bit in intensity if it's not going their way at half-time. But that's probably a bunch of BS, because this is semi-finals, and I don't think that'll. But Kahibah, you know, they definitely don't want to be behind in the first half, and if they go behind, say, you know, if Belswans score in the first 10 minutes or something, there's a real potential for them to get 3 or 4 goals, if Kahibah don't really switch on, and if they fall too behind inside half an hour, they're going to really struggle to bring it back. And then of course they've got to go next week to Belswans on Old Boys Day and try and come back. Kahibah, to be completely honest with you, Kahibah FC cannot afford to lose this game tomorrow if they want to make the grand final. I'll say that now. I've tipped 2-2, which already that plays in the Belswans' favour with away goals, but if Belswans win with the away goals, I can't see them losing next week at Blacksmiths, and I'll put that out there. So that's that for Saturday. We move on to Sunday in the under-17s, Kahibah versus Lake Macquarie City. This huge test for Kahibah. They've played, they've had so much energy and whatnot, mental emotion, I guess, used over the last few weeks. The late winner against Cessnock or Fortin or whoever that was, I forget which team it was, which kept them in that finals hunt. And then of course that brilliant defensive effort against Wallsend. They scored early and held on for dear life at times to put themselves in the top four. And then of course Pat Waller's 74th minute winner last weekend to send them into the finals. My question is, has Kahibah played their grand final in the 17s? They've been playing elimination football for a couple of weeks now, in my mind, so this is a big step up for Tony Belson's side. Being at the Gardens in the first leg, I think plays into their favour because they've got good memories there after just 2 weeks ago when they went there and won a massive game. Last time they played Lakes, it was Lakes 3-2 and Kahibah were definitely in it, so they don't need any sort of added thing. This is semi-final football. But the likes of their captain Joseph Haddon, Ryan Stutchberry, Kai Condon, Noah George, Casey Jackson, all playing against their former Lakes squad. Not too many of those Lakes players did play alongside. There was a few, so there's definitely, just playing against the club, they'll want to get that win. And Lakes come into this with decent form. They won 5-0 last week, if you don't mind, to wrap up the minor premiership. They didn't need to win 5-0, they only needed to win 1-0, so they definitely got the job done last week. Curtis McRitchie got 3 goals. He didn't need to score any to win the Golden Boot, and he went and got a hat-trick, so that's some way to seal the Golden Boot for McRitchie. We'll talk about keys to victory. And for Lakes, first of all for Kahibah, they have to be defensively minded, and that's above all else. They cannot afford to give Lakes too much of an advantage with the away goals. And I know I'm sounding like a repeating record, but it's very important in these 2-leg semi-finals. And when Lakes, I don't think Kahibah can put all their eggs in one basket and sort of just keep an eye out on Curtis McRitchie, because admittingly he is probably the best striker in the competition in the 17s, but they've got so much other talent in that team that can really do damage. Caleb Morley-Davies comes to mind. And there's others. There's plenty of talent in that squad. Harrison Taylor scored last week. They can score from anywhere, Lakes, in the 17s. They've got a very good goalkeeper in Brady McRitchie. So this is, in my mind, one of the toughest matches in the semi-finals. Kahibah are really, really up against it here. But they keep proving the doubters wrong, and why not again? For Kahibah, as I said, it's defensive effort. And maybe getting the likes of Kai Condon and whatnot in behind. I'm not sure where they'll put Joseph Haddon. They've been playing him sort of in an advanced role as a tall sort of attacker and just causing trouble for defenders, but maybe they might want him back in defence and trying to mark McRitchie out of the game. Big game for the likes of Noah George and Stutchberry further back in the squad. And for Lakes, it's, they'll just want to get those away goals. Something like a 2-0 would almost put them in the grand final, in my opinion. So they'll know that they've sort of got the freedom to do that. They can't afford to get too concerned if they go behind in the first half or whatnot. They just stick to their guns, and it would be a massive surprise to not see Curtis McRitchie get at least 1 goal on the weekend. He's in such good form, but again, it's a team around him, and if they can play as well as they can play, then I don't think Kahibah are going to get I don't think Kahibah will win, to be honest. I've tipped Lakes to win this, and that's because they're quality, and I think they'll get through to the grand final. But again, it's very interesting, Kahibah. You can't rule them out at all. In the 19s, Wallsend versus Lakes, I'm not going to lie, this is what I've called the most lopsided tie of the lot. I just, for some reason, I don't know, I just can't see Wallsend 19s getting past the Lakes. I think that's because for the majority of the second half of the season, Westy 19s have just been poor, disappointing, but they've come back to form as of late. So they've turned it around, they've changed up their style a little bit, but again, their strikers really need to fire some goals. Sam Jones and Turner and Greg Mason, those sort of players need to score goals. But again, it's in defence where it's going to count the most. Cooper Smith, Pennington in goals is going to be, it's a big test for him against some of these Lakes guys. I've tipped Lakes 3-1. I think they're real quality, and they beat Westy 4-0, and it wasn't that long ago. So Lakes will come in with confidence, and when you've got players like Josh Richardson, James Ward, Jack Russo, Darko Nicic, can never say that name. They're just pretty much the 17s team that won the grand final last year. They've been here, they know what it's all about, and they know how to win finals football. And I think that their key to victory is to just do that, to win. If they win the first leg, I can't see them losing the second leg at Lake Macquarie. And that's the advantage that Lakes have tomorrow. They've finished top in every grade, so they're the away side tomorrow in every grade. And then they can take some leads back to Lake Macquarie. And indeed, I've tipped Lakes in every grade tomorrow. For repetitive sake, it'd be good to see a bit of mixture in the grand final, but it would not surprise me one bit to see Lake Macquarie City in the grand final for every grade. They've finished top for a reason. In the 23s, Belswans v Lakes. Again, Belswans. That 8-2 victory over Wallsend, that was quality, but they're not in the best of form. Lakes did lose last week, and I think they drew the weekend before against Cessnock. It wouldn't surprise me if they didn't really put in 110% effort with the premiership already wrapped up. So Lakes, I think, are going to go to a whole new level, and Belswans have just got to hang on for dear life. That's the key to victory, and really, I think this could be worse than the 19s, to be honest with you. Belswans 23s, they're not the strongest defensively, with all due respect, of course. I'm not sure how they're going to go. But Lakes 23s, they aren't like, they don't score as many goals as the other Lakes teams do. So they've got plenty of goals, but it's not very often you see them put 5 in or whatever. Belswans have just got to get into a grind and sort of avoid, falling behind. And Lakes, they've just got plenty of potential to score goals. Kane Rogers has been very good this season, without being brilliant. He's done a lot of work, but they don't have a 20-goal striker like a McRitchie or a Sam Walker in this squad. What they do have is plenty of talent in midfield. Matt McClaw is probably one of the players I really like in that squad, does a lot of good work for them. Gabriel Serta, when he's on, he's on. Just plenty of potential in this Lakes team, and really they should be cruising to the grand final. They've finished 9 points clear of anyone on the table. Belswans come into this as real underdogs, in my opinion, ranked outsiders. And Lakes, as I said, they've just got to cap it all off in the perfect fashion. In first grade, Wallsend hosting Lake Macquarie City. Here we go again. Last season, I ruled out Wallsend. They lost 3-1 in the first leg. It was disappointing. And then they went to Lake Macquarie and they won 6-3 or 6-2, whatever it was, 6-1, something like that. It was 4-0 inside 20 minutes, that's what it was, to turn it all around and to go to the grand final in emphatic fashion. And for Wallsend, it's the experience that is their main point. Hodjo, Gazard, Paul Wheeler, they've all been here before in NPL, indeed in New FM last year. They know what finals football is all about. Hodjo especially, Hodjo and Gazard, such cool heads to have for finals football. They'll be business as usual. Wallsend, they haven't been great this season. You know, they've done the job, they've got to the top 4. They probably would have finished inside the top 2 if they didn't lose those points that they lost during the year. To be honest, they've done better than what I thought they would after Rufo left. I think Hodge's done a really good job with the squad. But again, they're going to need to fire onto another level. And I think they'll do that, I really do. Those players, they know what semi-final football brings and what it requires. And what it requires, and I was talking to someone about this at Kahibah the other night, it requires mental toughness more than anything. It's quite often the best team won't win. And it's quite often that ugly football does prevail, and gutsy football and nervous football, I guess. The grand final last year stands out. So Wallsend, they just, nothing is impossible. If they lose 3-1 at home, they can definitely go turn that around. They did last year, but I don't think they will. I think Lakes know what this is all about. To be fair, they're going to NPL. That's not confirmed. I keep saying it though. If they're not going to NPL, then what? Why not? Is the question. They will. So they'll want to leave with silverware. Lakes haven't won a grand final in about 10 years, I think it is. They've been to 1 or 2 since then. They've lost the semi-finals last year, of course. That'll be fresh in their memory. And they won't want to have any sort of chokers tag attached to them if they manage to lose to Wallsend again. I don't think they will. I think Lakes are going to just overcome the challenge, and they did when they went to the Gardens not that long ago. It was only 1-0. It's going to be a tight 2 legs. It's not going to end 6-4 or whatever the hell it ended last year. That's not going to happen. I think this is going to be a real grindy sort of game. Probably physical at times too, wouldn't surprise me. Maybe try and put Sam Walker off his game with 1 or 2, I'm not promoting dirty, illegal play, but try and, I think everyone out there knows what I mean. Cookshill did it to Singleton's Kieran Burrell last weekend. That was a horrible tackle though, but, shoulder to shoulder sort of challenge just to put Walker off his game early on, maybe, I don't know. They'll definitely be marking him very closely, but they have to keep an eye on the likes of Blake Green, Stephen Ross Pigolozzi. There's definitely some potential there at Lakes. It's solid team. Probably the best team in the competition across the park. The defence is solid. Matt Gray's had a brilliant year at the back. So Lakes, I think, will get there, but Wallsend have the experience, which I think is going to be key for them. But again, that's what it is. It's overall, it's mental toughness. It's the will to win. It's the desire to win. That's what semi-final football is all about. It's not like any other games. Whether we see a penalty shootout this year or not, we didn't see any penalty shootouts last year, but that's a whole new level of extra time and penalty shootouts. There's no extra. I think there might be extra time in first grade if the semi-finals go to extra time. I'm not sure, but there's definitely not in the lower grades. So goalkeeper's going to be sort of. They'll think about that in the back of their heads, but it's unlikely, I think, that any of the semi-finals will go to penalties, because away goals, of course, you'd have to end level on the score and level on away goals. So it's not impossible, but I think it's more likely that a grand final will go to penalty shootout above anything else. But it's the desire to win, it's the will to win, and bring it on, I say. Semi-final football is here, whole new level. Kahibah Oval tomorrow, the Gardens on Sunday, and then of course Blacksmiths next week, and Lake Macquarie Field the next Sunday. And then at Edgy for the grand final, which I don't agree with. I've never agreed with NPL grounds hosting UFM finals, and I never will agree with that, but that's what it is nonetheless. Not my favourite ground to watch football at, but that's where it's going to be. So that's where all the teams are aiming to be at in 2 weeks' time. Good luck to all. I was going to say the number of teams competing. It's 16, I think. It's 16 teams competing. That sounds about right. Good luck to all the different clubs competing. And it's a big 2 weeks coming up. Semi-final football is here. I will see you on the weekend or for Newysports TV next week. I'm Ty Stebbin. Thank you for joining us.